In today's video, I'm going to be washing my car and talking about my idea for the best bang for your buck modifications for your Miata. Most of them come around 100 or less, except for one of the ones that I'm going to talk about. So let's get started. So the first one that I'd like to point out is the door bushings. You can get these harder plastic door bushings for about $30. And yeah, some people will say it doesn't do much to actually stiffen up the chassis. I wouldn't say it does, but it does help with the harshness of when you hit road bumps or anything around town. It just doesn't sound as harsh. It helps the door kind of stay in contact with the rest of the body, because the old bushings, usually they're worn out or they end up being really, really soft. So it just turns out and kind of makes the whole car kind of shaky when you hit bumps. So that door bushing's only $30 and it makes the road harshness just not feel as intense. Like every time I would go over a bump, it felt like I was destroying something. But now, you know, spending $30, that's like nothing for a door bushing or something that makes it better. So in my eyes, it's the best bang for your buck item that you can get for your Miata. So if you haven't gotten it, do it now. It's not that much money. It's really easy to do. Plenty of tutorials on YouTube. I don't have one, but you can find one. So that's my first one. The second one is the Strut Tower braces for the front and the rear. That basically covers the structural rigidity from left to right. It was, I believe, around 130 for the pair. So if you wanted to do one or the other, it's less than 100. But it really just stiffened up the chassis and made it a lot better. I'm also planning on doing the frame rails so that I can get the rigidity from the front to back. But for the time being, the left to right is still okay. So bang for your buck. That's another bang for your buck item that I would get. It just makes the car handle better, and really that's what it comes down to, is how the car handles on the road as you're driving through the canyon and whatnot. So anything that makes the car handle better, I think is a huge mod and something that you should do, especially in a car like this. It just handles well, it's fun to drive. That's the whole point of it, right? So that is something that I would suggest doing. The third bang for your buck modification, at least in my eyes, is the exhaust. And when I say the exhaust, I'm kind of referring to what I did specifically, where I modified the OEM exhaust with a muffler bypass system. Because you can get pretty cheap exhaust systems for the Miata for around, you know, 200 to 300, or, you know, depending on what quality and how high of quality you want to get. But you can buy a cheap eBay one for around $300. But here's the thing, it can get pretty annoying. I've heard a couple that have those exhausts and it's just obnoxious. And I'm 28. I think maybe I'm out of that phase. I just can't handle constant loud exhaust, especially when the car like this is so slow. It's just like all bark and no bite. But my exhaust has a bypass switch, so I can switch it between the OEM sound with quiet. It's still good, just like any other OEM exhaust. But then I can bypass the muffler, which, you know, levels up the exhaust by 100%. It makes it sound gutsy. You can have fun. What it really comes down to is people are revving their engines at me and I can bark back at them. Performance-wise, I don't know if it makes a difference. I would say probably not. But even a big exhaust or a whole new exhaust system, if you don't get headers, it's not going to change too much, especially if the car is still naturally aspirated. But again, not a bang for your buck if you do a full exhaust system. Headers themselves are probably 300. I think the exhaust bypass, muffler bypass system that I've done is a great bang for your buck modification for your Miata. And it keeps everything OEM. You don't have to worry about, you know, emissions, or if a cop says, oh, your car's too loud, you can just shut it. Just OEM. So number 3 is the DIY exhaust system. My 4th bang for your buck item are the lower plastic pieces, such as the lip, the side skirt, lip for the rear end, and even the spoilers. All of them cost either around 100 or less, but they make the car look a little bit more aggressive. It's OEM plus. It just makes the car look more complete. It feels a little naked when it doesn't have a front lip or side skirts, etc. So I think bang for your buck, those plastic pieces are pretty cool. I would say get them, especially because they're plastic. You don't have to worry too much about them breaking. They're pretty flexible, like that's on there. Whereas like maybe a fiberglass piece would actually crack or fall apart, or carbon fiber, same thing. But these are all pretty rugged and really cheap. My next bang for your buck item will have to be the cold air intake that I made, a custom DIY cold air intake. The reason why I say that is because it depends on what type of intake you are creating. If you're just putting an air filter, a big cone filter, but it's still sitting next to the headers, especially in the Miata, it's not gonna make a difference. It might get more air, but it's still pulling in that hot air right next to the headers, which was the biggest problem with this car. I'm not sure why the engineers did that. It might have been just because of what happened. From my understanding, they were gonna turbocharge it at some point, but they didn't. So what I did is in my video, I routed the intake to pull from the driver's side cowl. It's right behind the firewall. You can look at this video and watch how I did that. But I did that, and I used the Box Performance air filter, the K&N air filter. So I still use the same air filter box, and I shaved a second plus off my 0 to 60. And that's pretty drastic for a car like this. Even then, saying that you shaved 1 second off 0 to 60 is huge. So, I mean, it could have been a combination of a dirty air filter from previous times, or a lot of different factors, but I will say you can definitely feel that there's more torque on the bottom end. I haven't had any issues where I'm running the AC and it just feels like it's getting heat soaked. So it honestly is probably one of the best bang for your buck modifications that I've done. And it also costs less than $100. I bought just a little accordion tube from O'Reilly's or AutoZone, I can't remember, and just routed it to that little hole in that video. So it did a huge performance upgrade for the car, and I think most people can do that because you can buy intake systems for the car. They probably cost, again, $300, $400. Again, not that much, but if you can get the same kind of performance from a custom one where you save $200, why not? So that is my number 5 on best bang for your buck modifications. And my last little bonus bang for your buck modification, I will say this is all my opinion, but I think the paint job was the best bang for your buck. It totally changed the car. There's not many Miatas that are repainted, so having a paint job, and which I got for $2,000 with an independent car shop, it just looks so much better. It stands out. I got to choose the color I wanted, and I mean, look at the paint. It looks a lot better than it was before. So in my eyes, a really good bang for your buck. It's gonna protect the car over time. You'll have an extra layer of paint depending on how you do that prep work, but I will say the paint job is an extra, but it is one of my bang for your buck modifications for your car. So in conclusion, those are the items that I think are the best bang for your buck modifications. All of them are around $100 except for the paint job. Either $100 or less, or maybe a little bit more, but still around $100. I have a video pretty much on all of those things, so I will link those either in the video or in the description, just so you can click onto that and make it easy for you. But yeah, obviously these are all my own opinion, but feel free to say otherwise or, you know, agree, but it's up to you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.